everybody has a story. And a lot of times you see them at the end, like towards the end, where they're like the CEO or they're the executive, and that's how you envision them.
Yeah.
And then you hear about what happened in the past, and you hear about, women who had their kids when they were like 18 years old and then didn't think they were ever going to be able to get a degree. And then you're looking at them today and you're like, what? Like mind blown,
Yep.
Or people who struggled and beat cancer. So many things that like looking at them from the outside, you would have no clue. And I think for me, it's always a daily reminder of like how lucky we really are every day to be alive. And that's like, doesn't have to be related to oil and gas, but it's related to people. And that was really what we wanted to get out of the podcast, is for people to see the human connection with those who work in oil and gas.
Right.
And that we're not like this evil, industry. I think we were successful at that.
Welcome to An Ounce of Prevention, the podcast. At our Reese & Associates, we believe that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Our daily commitment lies in informing our clients about legal risks without hindering their business objectives. As we like to say, we're in the business of building companies and helping executives sleep at night. So stay tuned. Maybe you'll learn something that'll help your business grow and thrive.
Welcome to An Ounce of Prevention, where we believe an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I'm your host, Rachel Reese. Before I introduce you to my guests, let's take a quick look at a recent case law update and break down what it means for your business. Today, we're discussing a major regulatory development for carbon capture and storage in Texas. The EPA granting Texas primacy over Class VI underground injection wells. Here's what happened. On November 12, 2025, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency announced a final rule granting Texas primary enforcement authority, or primacy, for permitting and enforcing Class VI UIC wells. These are the injection wells designed to put carbon dioxide into deep geologic formations for long-term storage, which is the core component of carbon capture and storage projects. Okay, let me stop for a second and explain primacy. Primacy is awarded when a federal regulator determines that the state program is at least as stringent as federal requirements, so the state can administer and enforce the program itself, subject to federal oversight. Texas already had primacy for other UIC well classes. This action completes the set by adding Class 6 wells to the list. Beginning December 15, 2025, the Railroad Commission of Texas became the primary permitting authority for Class 6 wells in Texas, while the EPA shifted into a more traditional oversight and review role instead of handling the day-to-day permitting. The rule applies to Class 6 wells within Texas, but excludes Indian lands. So what's the real-world impact? State regulators and those in the industries that are governed by them want primacy because of permitting timelines and predictability. Class 6 permitting is a bottleneck nationally. However, shifting permitting to the state level improves responsiveness, reduces uncertainty, and creates a clearer path for applicants, even if the technical requirements remain rigorous. So why should you care? Well, project economics and 45Q credits hinge on whether and when you are able to get your Class 6 permit. As CCS moves from concept to deployment, permitting delays can mean the difference between a project that works and one that doesn't. And Texas primacy is a big signal that the state intends to be a major CCS jurisdiction, especially for Gulf Coast and Permian region development. That's it for this update. If you're considering a CCS project or evaluating a Class 6 strategy in Texas, RRNA's energy and regulatory team can help you map the permitting pathway, align project contracts and diligence with RRC expectations, and position the project for bankable timelines under the new regulatory landscape. Thanks for listening. I'd like to thank Miguel Otero, a junior associate in our Dallas-Fort Worth office, for his help with this update. Today, we're talking to the two incredible voices behind Flipping the Barrel, Massiel Diez and Jaime Elrod. As the co-founders and hosts of the podcast, they share real stories and honest conversations from across the energy industry. With backgrounds in engineering, sales, and leadership, they're creating space for people and perspectives that deserve to be heard. Welcome to An Ounce of Prevention, ladies.
Hey, Rachel.
Hello,
Hey.
Rachel. We're so excited to be here. We love it. We love your setup.
Oh, thank you.
Love the studio, yes.
Yes.
Well, we were just saying how jealous I am of y'all's setup, so.
Yeah. I know, right? Everywhere you go, you're like, I want to be like that. But I really love the couches and the cozy feel. So thank you again for inviting us today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So I really want to start talking about this incredible organization that you both founded, Flipping the Barrel. How did it get started? What's the story?
I think in a nutshell, Jamie's husband, Jason, randomly reached out to me on Instagram. He said, you need to meet my wife. And for me, it was really cool because I was in the field for 5 years and I didn't have any women friends. Like, I just worked with a bunch of guys out in the field. And I had just moved from Midland to Houston. And I was like, I'd love to meet another girl that's my age and that, I don't know, like, we could talk about careers and life and just, she was like the perfect fit for it. And so Jaime also always tells her side of the story, so I'll let you say it because it's really funny the way you say it.
Well, then, of course, being the wife of the husband who reached out to the girl on Instagram, you know, I get a call from Jason and he's like, you need to meet with this girl that I found on Instagram, you know, her name's Massiel. And then I go and look at her Instagram and, you know, she's got like 30,000 followers, all these pictures of her and her gear at the time, her working gear, you know, out in the field. And I'm like, really, Jason? You reached like, what are you doing? And he was right. So I listened to him and I was like, okay, sure, I'll meet with her. And then we met up and then I want to say we probably talked for like 3 hours. We met at Bella Green, which was the same place that she was eating at whenever he had originally messaged her or DM'd her on Instagram. And then from there, her and I were like, man, we need to do something together. What can we do? And at the time, it was around 2019, and there was a lot going on in the energy and oil and gas space where people were just looking very poorly on oil and gas. And politically, but just all around, we were just really struggling with the image. And so Massiel and I were like, man, like, what can we do to help the image of the oil and gas industry? And at the time, her husband was in kind of like podcasting and doing some stuff. And while we were at my house, like at the kitchen counter, we were like,
we were talking about starting a wireline company together. Because that was a time where there was so much investment in small mom and pops in the U.S. And we were just hearing of like friends just getting a few $1 million from investors. And it was like up and coming. People were selling their businesses. So we were like, we need to do something.
Yeah.
Like,
and it was impossible to get wireline scheduled back then, too.
There was so many wireline companies like just popping in and out. We're like, we're going to create our own women-only wireline company. The trucks were going to be pink. And we're just ranting at this of how we were going to start this business. And then our husbands were just looking at each other. And
And then Tim was like, maybe I'll do like a podcast because y'all like to talk a lot. You know? And Jason was like, I think that's a good idea, even though he wasn't really so sure about what podcasting was at the time. Tim had some more like stake in the game there and kind of knew. And so we were like, okay,
Let's do that.
So then the next thing was like, what are we going to call it? And then that's where we went back and forth for maybe 10 or so minutes. And we came up with Flipping the Barrel. And
we just knew. Like, people always ask us about the name. And we were coming up with a bunch of different stuff. And then Jaime said, Flipping the Barrel. We were just like, barrel this, oil.
Yeah,
like we were just
trying
throwing
to figure
things out. And when she said Flipping the Barrel, we just looked at each other. We're like, that's the name.
And we're like
we
a
stopped
women's,
right there and we went and got an LLC right away without knowing what we were going to do.
No. And we thought women's perspective in oil and gas, flipping the narrative was the whole idea behind the name. And then the rest of it is history. Yeah.
So that was the founding. Kind of walk us through the stages, right? So you have this mission, you're going to reshape the way that people feel about oil and gas, but now you're throwing conferences and you have how did you get from there to here?
Yeah.
It took a while.
The podcast started out with like Massiel and I interviewing people we knew, like our mentors, people that helped us get into the industry or helped us grow in the industry. And then at the time I was working at C&J Energy Services, which now has been bought into, now it's Patterson if you go down the whole line. But the CEO at the time, he really liked what we were doing. And I had asked him, like, would you come on our podcast? And he was like, yeah, sure. And then that was really the turning point for us because when he came on the podcast, he then started telling all his other CEO friends about what we were doing. And so the next was Ann Fox, CEO of Nine Energy. And then it just kind of started snowballing after that.
We tapped into this circle of executives that all knew each other. It's still a very small oil and gas community. And we always say, like, if he wouldn't have necessarily, like, taken that chance on us and been like, I have no idea what these girls are doing, but I'm going to go on as a CEO. And back then, CEOs were not going on podcasts. It was very, like, you know.
Taboo. It was like, what are you going to say? Whatever's on the podcast is, you know, evergreen. So you got to watch your words. And that was what was told to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember like my manager at the time was like, you can do that. Because it was also like, you had to get approved, like your company
We're both
too.
working for companies.
Yes.
So that was awkward too.
Yeah, that was, yeah. And I just remember my boss at the time being like, well, just remember everything you say is going to be recorded. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I just knew as long as we were authentic and whatever we were talking about was positive, we would be fine. And we kept that motive for the entirety of the podcast. And that's where it really clicked with a lot of people is once they started listening to it, we got more buy-in. It took us about 2 years to really get where we could just email people and then start to be like, okay, yeah, I can come on the podcast. So it took a while to get to the point where we weren't having to explain ourselves and all of that. But we just kept it very positive, very shining a light on the industry. We kept it out of technology as far as the people who come on. We wanted to hear about them and their story, not what they were selling. So we wanted to not be salesy. And I think doing that opened up more doors for us because it was about 2 years in that we decided to do our first women's event. And that really came from the community. So
Really?
we realized that we had a huge listenership, especially in the Houston area. And Massiel and I had just had babies. And she was like, well, if we're going to do this, we need to like put it out in the world. And so we took a photo at my house with the babies and like milk, like we had milk bottles and the whole 9 yards in the photo. She was like, don't clean the counter. Just keep everything there. Just take the photo. It was the iconic photo that started it all because we posted that. And then we said we were doing this women's event called Pursuing Greatness.
We had no idea how to throw an event. Like zero. We didn't even know. We didn't have venues. We didn't, like zero. We've never thrown anything. I didn't even throw my own wedding. Like my cousin helped me out because I don't know how to plan anything.
Yeah.
I think what had happened in like the catalyst for it is we had gone to a lot of conferences and we had gone to like a women's conference and we were like, that's it? Like that's what the panels were? Like, I feel like we both left kind of disappointed that there wasn't like true conversations and it was all like, oh yeah, it's great to be up here and life is perfect and I'm
let's only focus on work-life balance because that's the only thing that women want to talk about.
It was just like we walked out of there and we're like, I don't know, maybe if we can do it, just like the podcast, we're super real, we're raw, like we like talking about the hard things. We're like, we could do our own women's event and we could, do that. And the other thing too is we were really big into other industries like through Instagram and stuff like fitness and just different kinds. And their events looked so cool. They had balloon walls, they had photo wall, they had
all this cool stuff going on. Everybody looked happy and taking photos.
And our events were like everyone was wearing a black suit, including the women. And so we were like, if we do our own event, we could make it ours. And that was really like the idea behind Pursuing Greatness was like bringing some funness to oil and gas.
It was so funny because I remember even posting saying we're going to have a flower wall and like people were like, a flower wall? Like we wouldn't go to that. And we sold out. So we had 250 women within, that was in January when we announced it. And the event was like early March. So within that time frame, we had filled up the entire Petroleum Club. And we had a great panel session, but we learned a lot from that event. We learned really what we needed to do at the next one, which was like break up, give people breaks between, because we just had like a long panel session, which was incredible and everybody loved it because it was very real, raw conversations on every topic you could think of, from having babies to losing babies to like all sorts of things that most women don't get the chance to talk about, especially in like work. It's like,
everyone shows like they've got it all together. And this event was really like, wow, everybody kind of like let their walls down. I think something to point out when people kind of look at a business like Flipping the Barrel or the success of it is like we doubted ourselves a lot through even throwing that event because we were like, what if 50 women come only, And then now we've booked this Petroleum Club and it's our first time like putting quite a bit of money to secure a venue and buy catering and all this stuff. And what if no one, like, we've never done this before. Yeah. So there was a lot of fear on both of our sides of like, what if 50 people, what if nobody buys a ticket? Like, I think the first time someone bought a ticket on the website, we were like freaking out. So it's fun to see all of those little things that I think people now see, like this big event, 400 women, and it's become what it is. But we still to this day doubt ourselves. We still to this day are like, oh my God, how are we going to pay for this?
We just threw our inaugural Halloween event, and I'm going to look off camera here for a second because Rachel, who is running these cameras, and I remember sitting there like, what if no one comes? We've booked out, Meow Wolf, and we're putting all of this press out there that we're doing this. What if it's just us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a horrible feeling.
Yeah, it is.
But I mean, I appreciate you guys being so real about that, because it's not just the events, right? It's sort of everything that you do when you're a founder of anything. Like, what if this doesn't work?
Yeah.
It costs money, it costs time, it costs resources, and you're like,
and what's been
doing
really
my best
nice
here.
is we've had instances. Last year, we started our first ever. We did a golf event. No idea what we were doing. And we wanted to do 9 holes only. And it got to the point where even Black Horse, which was where we had it at, argued with us on the fact that nobody was going to come if we were doing 9 holes. And I was like, you're not our audience. You don't know who's going to come.
Right.
And so we were battling that just to get the venue booked or the course booked. And then also when we came out with the branding, I think immediately, we might have even posted the new branding. We didn't like it. Massiel and I were like, no, this isn't going to work. We've got to rebrand.
Yeah.
And so
we've done a lot of those
We turned
pivotings.
around, and we pivoted, and that's what's been so nice about it just being her and I, is it's like, if we don't like something, we just change it.
Yeah.
Versus having to go and call somebody and get approval and have a meeting and talk about it. It's just a text message.
And I think, too, when it comes to business, how representation matters came to be because we do 2 events a year, 2 signatures. So Pursuing Greatness, which is our women's event only in the beginning of the year. And then usually in the fall, it's called Representation Matters. And how that event came to be was we were forcing ourselves to do an ESG event because ESG was such a hot topic. So we were the typical, what's hot? What are people willing to pay for? And we constructed this whole ESG event. And we were just not excited about it because I was like, I don't even know what ESG really is. We were struggling. And so
different things to different people.
Yes.
Yeah, we were putting some ideas together and even the branding of it, but we were just not passionate about ESG, but we felt like we had to because that's where the industry was headed.
Yeah.
And I remember we're deep a month into all of this and we're like, this is not working out because our hearts were not in it.
Yeah. And it's really hard to sell something whenever the 2 people that are creating it cannot, we're just we can't get there on it.
We couldn't
even find the people that we wanted to speak. We're literally just going after a target that we know is on every company's back, but we don't know how to make that into something that we love.
Yeah. Sort of the shoulds versus the want tos.
Yeah. And then we just got advice on one day and it was what do you guys love? It's about people and da-da-da. And it's rethink the event, rethink what you like. And then we were oh, representation. We care about that. It'd be cool to have someone that, is the CEO of this company that there isn't many people, Hispanics or Black or whatever. And it'd be cool to represent that. And so Representation Matters kind of came to be. And then we wanted to do a panel with the mothers and their daughters or the fathers and their daughters. And I don't know, once we hit on something that we love, it was game over. That event was super successful and we were do. But I say that because a lot of times in business, you will have that where you're just chasing, like Jaime said, this target of this is what we need to do for the business. And it's not successful because your heart's not in it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's actually a really good lesson for anybody in change management or anybody in leadership, that you've got to get people's buy-in, right? You've got to get them to be behind it. Otherwise, they're just chasing something that you told them to.
No, it's exactly right. And it becomes really difficult to meet those targets. And for people that work in a company, it makes it very difficult to meet their annual target whenever they're just this is not going to work,
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they don't really have as much say as, we do. So it was easy to just be yeah, this is not what we're going to do. And we pivoted. And as Massiel said, turned out amazing for us.
That's a wonderful success story. Do you guys have any others that you'd like to share coming out of your events or your podcast about, sort of flipping the narrative?
As far as the podcast goes, for me, it's everybody has a story. And a lot of times you see them at the end, towards the end, where they're the CEO or they're the executive, and that's how you envision them.
Yeah.
And then you hear about what happened in the past, and you hear about women who had their kids when they were 18 years old and then didn't think they were ever going to be able to get a degree. And then you're looking at them today and you're what, mind blown,
Yep.
Or people who struggled and beat cancer. So many things that looking at them from the outside, you would have no clue. And I think for me, it's always a daily reminder of like how lucky we really are every day to be alive. And that's like, doesn't have to be related to oil and gas, but it's related to people. And that was really what we wanted to get out of the podcast, is for people to see the human connection with those who work in oil and gas.
Right.
And that we're not like this evil, industry. I think we were successful at that.
Yeah, I always get that when I'm on the road or talking to people in other industries. Oh, you're so personable. I'm just so surprised you're in oil and gas. We are people.
Yeah.
Like, we are nice, interesting people, I promise you.
Yes, exactly.
With a variety of backgrounds and interests and even political leanings. My goodness.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's get down to the topic that we really wanted to talk about today. I have seen in the various organizations that I'm a part of, especially women's organizations, that there has been a real drop-off in the support of companies and leadership to, spend the time and the resources to support the organizations, to send people to the conferences, what have you. Have you experienced something similar?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen the shift. We're frontline, so we see the responses that we get back from some people that you'd probably be very, maybe not you, but our listeners would probably be very shocked about how we get responded to. And just a big shift in the overall approval and of funds for events for specifically women.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, nothing has changed as far as what we do, what is supported, the people that want to come.
Right.
Because we get asked all the time, like, we really want to come. My company now, though, won't support a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And that to us is devastating, because it's not just an event. It's a place where people connect. It's like just like the guys who go out to all the golf. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many photos I saw on social media, people at the Waste Management golf tournament.
Right.
How much that cost.
Yeah.
But nobody's questioning those funds, because it's a typical, been doing that for decades. We don't need to take money away from that. And so, yeah, we have most definitely, have seen a shift.
Yeah, I think maybe when it comes to the trends, I would say when we first started it, like, I wouldn't say like it was a big thing to invest in women. It was like starting,
Yeah.
but it was really like COVID. And then afterwards, when ESG was starting to become really big, and all these companies now were like, we need to show that we support women because it's going to get me a promotion. It's going to show that I'm like an inclusive leader. And so all of these people obviously were starting to come out, et cetera. And I would say, yeah, in the last year or two, obviously it's gone down a little bit as the industry. We're not necessarily in a great place. So I understand the budget costs,
Yeah.
but we don't see it equally across. It's like
Exactly.
the budgets are costs, but to your point, there's still all these crazy golf tournaments, fishing tournaments, all of these
That seems to be getting more
of
expensive.
drinking and having fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are still celebrated and are still done. But when it comes to budget costs, it's all the additional, which we fall into, which is like, it's a women's event. And I do think it's because a lot of times people don't take it that serious of like women's development. And to your point, it's a network and she's growing and she could be a better leader and all these things. It's just like, it's just like women having brunch. So it's kind of,
Yeah.
I would say it's like the mindset around what we actually bring to the table during these events.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the women's events have a PR problem, right? We need to flip that narrative.
And that, I would say, that's more internal for all the companies. And I think what we see too is, I don't know if when people come to our events, since their manager might be a man who paid for the table for them to come, might not be seeing what they get out of coming, or who they connected with, or the connections that they've made, or the networking that they've made. I've even had people say, what's my ROI? What am I going to get out of it? And I want to report back to them and be like, only if you knew how many tables were bought by your customer that are actually filled with people that you would actually be able to meet and have a conversation with,
Right.
versus these other events that you go to where they're no-show. Because a lot of those things that people pay for is a lot of just service companies coming because the operators know exactly what's going to happen. So at ours, it's people
It's a
have
good mix.
It's a good mix, and people have like real conversations. Like, they're not there to sell you.
Yeah.
So it's a different environment. But if people aren't going back and explaining that, then they don't know.
Well, they also, when you're at an event like this, you get access to different people who aren't going out and playing golf and who aren't doing some of these things because, frankly, they don't have the time or they don't have the interest, right? You'll never see me on a golf course unless I'm just like sunning myself because I don't enjoy golfing. But yeah, I think to your point, it's a trend, right? But I'm an action taker, and I think you both are action takers as well. And so we need to think about What advice can we give? What actions can people be taking to help sort of flip that narrative at their company? I was recently reading something about ROI, and it seems like as women, we don't do a good enough job of going back to our companies and explaining the ROI, right? Because I'm not going to meet somebody at your conference and then the next day we're doing business together, right? But it is a long-term thing. And so when that connection happens, or when, the business comes in, or you're able to negotiate across the table from somebody, it's, oh, they're my friend. Or no, I met them at this conference and I've had a long-standing relationship with them because I met them at a conference thrown by Flipping the Barrel that I never would have met them at before. This is the first time that I've seen them in my 10 years in the industry.
That is very true. I do think as women, we do that. We're like, well, she's my friend. And it's like, it's still business, and you've cultivated that friendship all the way until the deal is closed. But I do think like how we portray it, it's like, we're all friends and like we met. Yeah. But it's, it's how we explain it.
I also think for men, it's different because if a guy goes to something and he meets somebody that he's supposed to meet or ran into, his boss and then probably already know that guy, probably know that guy was a target, or they know the guy's name, or they know that somebody they've been trying to, track because they've all been, after that person.
They've been strategic about it.
They've been strategic about it, exactly. And so when he comes back and says, oh, yeah, I'm having lunch with John or whatever, they're like, the John, like the guy that you met, and where that doesn't happen with women, it'll be like, yeah, I'm meeting Sarah, like, yeah, one of my friends, but really you met her at so-and-so, and she's the one that's going to introduce you to the guy or the girl that could potentially be, the one that you need.
Yeah.
But that's like a whole chain of events that women just like rather not explain,
Right.
and just be like, oh yeah, I met some nice people, saw my friends.
Well, I also find that using the word friend in those contexts, and unfortunately I feel like it's more punitive to women, but it's, oh, so-and-so's my friend. And then someone else will come over the top. Well, I also have a contact over there and I've known them for da-da-da-da-da-da. And so it's the use of the word friend instead of saying they're my contact. I've been nurturing this relationship for a long time. Almost puts you in sort of the back seat.
That's a good point.
It is.
I want to go back to your mention of the word strategic, because when I was thinking about this topic, because I'm planning to speak about it at your event, there was an article about there's a misconception, they say, among women that you cannot be authentic and also strategic at the same time. The two do not align. And the research was saying, actually, that's how you get business done, right? Is being authentic, but also being strategic. Like you said, you know who you're going to meet at this event. And it's not like you're going to come up to them and be like, hi, I'm Jaime, and I need to sell you, da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
You're still going to show up as your authentic self, which is so important to women. But you are going to go back and be like, so I met the person that I went there to meet.
Yes.
Right? Yes. That's where the strategy comes in. It's almost that we're losing that in the back end when we're explaining to our companies why we're here and what we're getting out of it.
Well, I just think in general, we have a harder time, and I forgot the book, but it was like all these traits of like what women do. And a big part of it is like we like dim our accomplishments, or we never speak about all the great things that we're doing. And even we downplay a lot of it. It's like, oh, and I do agree on like the being strategic and being authentic, because I think as women, sometimes we feel like if we're being strategic, then we're not being authentic, and that screws with us because we're like, we need you to be real. And if they think that I'm going to sell them, then I'm not a good person. And like for us, it's all about like, am I a good person, even though I'm being strategic, which is why I think a lot of times we don't play chess that well when it comes to corporate and knowing how to move all those pieces, because we want to be true and we want to be like authentic, but you also have to add that strategy in order to do business.
It's still business, right? This is a work day. We're not having lunch with our girlfriends. This is a transaction. I paid money to be here and we're getting things out of it. That's how it works.
When we see some of the responses from people too, it's like some of them can be kind of cold.
Yeah.
It's like people don't know how to respond when they know that maybe it's something they should actually be doing, but they just don't want to allocate, the resources to it. And I think that is a struggle.
Yeah.
And to your topic at the event, like speaking about it, I just think it's something that we've never spoken about. I've never heard a conversation about this, about women's events and funding and the support or what women actually get out of these types of engagements.
Yeah.
And if we're in the business and we're doing that, you would think we would say we hear it all the time, what people get out of it, but we have to physically ask, like, give us feedback. Like, what did you get out of it? You know? And so I think that's just important for the future of the events, is that as women, we just need to stand a little bit taller and go back and say that this is important to me.
Yeah. I mean, you can't have these being thought of as, I think you said something like auxiliary or, kind of periphery events, the first things that you cut, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to show how important this is for leadership development, for, even ROI. Like, here are all the things that you get from this company. This is not one of the first things that you want to cut.
I think something that maybe we wanted to talk about, and we've had this conversation several times because we've obviously been in business for 6 years and we treat this as a business. It's events, it's podcasts, we have sponsors, we do marketing, like we do a bunch of stuff. But something that we came to realization, I think last year when we did a little bit of a mini rebrand, was I don't think people take us seriously as business because we're women. And I think when the responses to us, it's always like, oh, are you a non-for-profit?
Oh, yeah.
And we always say, like, do you ask all the guys that come in here with a business if they're non-for-profit? It's this weird, like,
or
we
could give you money if
where
you
I feel
were
like they just think it's like these two young girls that just like do this for fun. And yeah, we started like that. But as we became more and more serious, that was something that we noticed a lot when we would have conversations. It's like, oh, these two young, oh, so sweet. Keep doing what you're doing.
Pat on the head.
Yeah,
we
like,
really
we
noticed
love,
that.
what we got a lot was, we love what you're doing. Okay, great. We have this event coming up. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't support you. Okay, well, you just told me to continue. You just told me you loved what we were doing. And then now you're talking to me like I'm 5, whenever I'm 36. We have kids now. Like, this is a real thing, and I think the non-for-profit would really irked me personally. And I think Massiel too, like, it was like, this is not why. I don't ever think a man would ever be asked, oh, your conference, like, there's some conferences out there that came out about the same time as ours, and I'm pretty sure
wildly expensive. By the way.
Yeah,
expensive.
and I'm pretty sure he was never asked if he was going to make it non-for-profit.
Yeah.
And we've been asked probably more than a handful of times.
Yeah. So that's always been like a topic that like really has bothered us, is just women being in business and just not being taken seriously for like what we actually do for the industry.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, it's so cute.
Yeah.
So that bothers us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to keep having that come at you and still keep showing up in the way that you want to show up, right? I've been reading a lot about status, and it's you have to show up with the confidence as if you already have the status. But then when people keep, saying things like that to you, you're like, what? Okay.
Yeah. And that was what sparked us to rebrand some, because we did feel like maybe people, when they see our image, they just think like,
we had a lot of pinks and a feminine touch to it, which was like, obviously the brand evolves. We started without kids. We were way younger. Like, we're now going on to 7 years of business. So last year going into 2025 with just seeing all of the changes happening within just the industry plus where the budgets were going, we were like, it's time for us to mature a little bit as well. Not only like personally, we are way more mature today than when we started the podcast, but the brand needed to mature itself.
Yeah.
And so we went for like some darker blues and removed the pinks. Now there's just a little bit of pink. So it's part of the process, but that was definitely a catalyst for us of we need to rebrand a little bit so that we're stop being taken like we're not a real business.
Yeah. So that leads me to a question. Is there anything that women's conferences in general could or should be doing to be taken out of the periphery zone, to be seen as more of a core conference, not a non-for-profit? This is something that we need to dedicate time and money to every single year.
I think a big part of that comes from the women who need to speak
up
about it in rooms where we're not in or where like their peers aren't in. And it's really what we've seen as the women who keep coming back and back or who are now buying tables. It's those women that do see a value and will go to the organization and fight a little bit and like request and push, because we can't do that. We're not inside the organization, but it's we have noticed there are some women that just truly believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we can get more and more people to be able to take it more serious. It's like everyone's responsibility within the event that does see value out of it to want it for other ladies who can come next year or the next team. And so it's a team effort.
Yeah. So at your business, treating it as a core conference, that it's a non-negotiable. This is something in our budget every year.
We're starting to get a few key sponsors that are now saying like, hey, we want to sponsor Pursuing Greatness and Reputation Matters.
Like it's in our budget every year. Budget. Like they're treating it as something.
It like a key event for them. And so we have seen that shift because I believe also just like having, like now we're a real conference. I mean, we always were, but it's been repeated every year. So it's like you can predict that we're going to have another one.
Yeah.
And then also we started doing some questions when people register. And I've been seeing a lot more of new people coming and them saying, I'm here because of FTB reputation. I think that's very important because the reputation of Flipping the Barrel beyond just Massiel and I think is important for the brand and for people to be recognizing the brand and knowing that brand is alive and like it holds value will then start to turn, I think, some of those people that might think that, it's not a necessity for their, employees to go will start to understand like this is a big brand and like it's got a lot of support behind it and we have valuable conferences and discussions.
Yeah. I mean, I think especially for you guys and, take my advice for what it's worth. I would like to see more on the quality of the conversations that you guys are having, right? Because I think there's a misconception at the company level that, they're just going to talk about, not you, but women's conferences in general. We're just going to talk about work-life balance again. We're just going to have mimosas. We're just going to, talk about pursuing your passion, which is at every women's conference. Like, no, we're having real conversations, but also the people in the room are different, right? When I go to a women's conference, I meet people that I would never meet anywhere else.
I mean, this event that's coming up, we're partnering with 50/50 Women on Boards. We're having a whole panel discussion on how women not just need to be on boards, but how do you get on a board? What does it take to get on a board? You tell me where else you're going to get that. Like, where are your women leaders going to get that? And they're going to be mentored from other men who don't need the same things as women do. So we're really providing a lot of resources for people's companies, like in their employees, to really, value and get opportunities that maybe they wouldn't get or they would never thought about. So
to Rachel's point, because we only recorded it once, and I do think that's where people can really be like, oh, wow, this is like a very different than what I've seen. I think when it comes to recording, and I think this year we'll just do more of like clips of like speakers, like on a phone, etc. The biggest thing with recording, even though a lot of people have requested for it, especially if they want to do virtual because we've got followers in other countries or not in Houston, is I think it lets women not be as transparent when they know that there's a camera.
Yeah.
While as we see women be super open and transparent because they're like, there's 400 women here and this is hopefully as far as it's going to go and it's not recorded. So we're always like
and we
struggling with that because we're like, we want to show you what it's about, but it also takes away from like that authenticity when they know they're not being recorded.
We also always wanted it to be a place where you need to be in the room.
Right.
That's where you get the most value. I didn't want it to become something where it's just like another Teams meeting and you're listening, but you can't. So we wanted you to be in the room. And then, there was also when we get big CEOs, they're like, is there media there? Is this recorded? And
right.
So for her and I to just not even have to deal with that kind of stuff, we're just like, no, there's no media besides us. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't mentioning, I was thinking recording. I was just thinking like pre-publicizing or even post, like we had this really important conversation.
We get a lot of guests that do that come, and it's amazing. I love reading what they get out of it. So I will say that is definitely all over social media post-event.
Yeah.
Now, are they having that same feedback to their,
is that getting translated to the company level?
I don't know, but they definitely can verbalize it on social media because it's really good. I've read really good messages, and her and I always try to comment on all of them. So,
all right, ladies. Well, I really appreciate you joining me today. I thought this was a really interesting conversation, and hopefully we've given some folks some ideas for how to make it to the next women's conference. Any final thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah, we'd love to meet you. We'd love for you to come to our event. Pursuing Greatness, the one that we have been speaking about, is coming up on March 26th. It's at Lakeside. We still have tickets and tables available. You can find more information at flippingthebarrel.com. And you can see all the speakers, everybody that's going to be attending, and we'd love to have you. And Rachel's going to be there too.
Yes.
I will be there speaking about this.
And yeah, thank you for having us. It's rare that we're on the other side of being interviewed, and I don't think we've necessarily shared our whole story and journey of how FTB started to where it is recorded. Like we say it at our events.
Yeah,
a lot
at our
of times
events
where
is
we
where
meet
we
people.
repeat
So
it.
thank you so much. I think a lot of people, we're still always shocked how many people like don't know the story. They're like, we heard your podcast, but that's like about it. So it's really cool that there's like a long form content now where you can like go look at the journey of flipping the barrel.
Yeah. So thank you, Rachel. We enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast or have any ideas for topics, please email us at podcast@rreeselaw.com.
When you hear R. Reese and Associates, you probably think of a firm that brings value, insight, and service to the Texas oil and gas industry. You wouldn't be wrong in that assumption, but the reality is our expertise extends far beyond a single industry or state line. Energy is where we built our foundation. We've spent years serving operators, non-ops, mineral owners, and energy-adjacent businesses across the U.S. But our work doesn't stop at the wellhead. Today, it extends to renewables, water management, and energy tech. It supports companies as they scale, restructure, raise capital, or navigate mergers and acquisitions. And beyond energy, we work with manufacturing and industrial clients both domestically and internationally. Our expertise spans the full spectrum of business challenges, contracts, corporate governance, private fund formation, SEC compliance, and complex debt and restructuring. As those businesses evolve, so does our role. And this year, we've expanded again. Our RNA now offers commercial real estate practice led by our Dallas office, and a dedicated estate planning practice headed up by our Denver team. These additions reflect how we think about client needs, because they don't exist in silos, but span industries, borders, and all stages of growth. So if you assumed RRNA was just a Texas oil and gas firm, think again. We're business-minded attorneys first, with the experience and perspective to support companies and industries across the globe, wherever they grow. To explore what RRNA can do for you, send us an email at podcast@rreeselaw.com.
The information and material in this episode is general information about our practice and firm and is for educational and informational purposes only. This information does not offer specific legal advice, and the use of this information does not create an attorney-client relationship with RRNA or any of its attorneys. The information in this episode, or any episode of An Ounce of Prevention, should not be considered legal advice, and persons should not act upon this information without first engaging professional legal counsel.
Thank you for listening to An Ounce of Prevention, presented by R. Reese and Associates. If you found this episode informative, subscribe to, rate, and review our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to stay up to date with future episodes, case law updates, and breaking news. If you have any questions or are interested in learning what RRNA's outsourced legal department can do for your company, reach out to us at podcast@rreeselaw.com. That's podcast@rreeselaw.com. Follow us on LinkedIn or call 832-831-2289.